Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Today I was speaking with Courtney Heard, aka Godless Mom. You can find her on Twitter under that handle, or also on YouTube, and she also has a podcast called Common Heathens, which she does with Mr. Oz Atheist. And you also are blogging and you're working on a book now, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And so, if I know most people probably know a bit about your background, but if you can just give a little bit of your background, then we can just take it from there.
Sure. Yeah, I just mostly just write about atheism and stuff that kind of loosely relate to that. I am an atheist. I've been an atheist for life, so I didn't deconvert from any kind of religion or anything like that, which is, I think, why I am so into this is because it's so fascinating to me, like how people believe this stuff and how they get out of it and how it affects them and all of that stuff because I've never experienced it. But yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Okay. Like I know you're out on the West Coast, and
Hmm.
you used to be in the like Lower Mainland or like Greater Vancouver, and then now
Yeah.
you're in the interior in a small town.
Yes.
Okay, I lived in Vancouver for a while, and I was also actually in the same town you were in back in '86 on a it was a high school student exchange, so I kind of
Hmm.
experienced both.
Yeah.
And Vancouver has its fair share of Jesus freaks, for a lack of a better term. And I found the interior was like a little bit more, not even so much people standing on the street corner and you know yelling things at you, but more structured with like church was more central to the communities. Uh, did you
Mhm.
find that, or like do you like what did you notice?
Well, I mean, it's weird because when I first moved here, I noticed that there was a lot of churches, like a lot. For the amount of people in this town, there are a lot of churches. And I would get Jehovah's Witnesses to my house. I still do every week. I know them all. They know me. And they're just trying so hard to win my soul. But um, they, so I kind of kept my stance. I kept the blog a secret. I kept everything a secret. And when I met people, I wouldn't tell them. But slowly people started to like discover it because I didn't like go out of my way to hide it on social media. So when we became friends on Facebook and stuff, they started to figure it out. And what I realized is that like every single person I've met here is not religious at all. And they love my blog. Like they all read it now. And so I think there was a time when it was super religious, and you can definitely get that feeling from driving through the town because there's so many churches, but it's not at all. And I think it's like I think the older generations are, but they're not the people that I'm hanging out with. I'm mostly hanging out with other families with kids and stuff like that, and they're not at all religious.
Okay,
It's really weird. It's not what I expected.
like for me, like I was like, well, I grew up in Montreal, and I mean Quebec has it's probably I think one of the most non-religious provinces, but everything's named after a saint. Everything's it
Hmm.
was a predominantly Catholic. There's churches everywhere,
Hmm.
but there wasn't that much religion really per se. But in the last
Yeah.
few years, I was living up north, and okay, I'm going to be generalizing here, so people are going to freak out. Inuit were superstitious to some extent, like and more, like everything was a little superstitious. The Northern Lights were demons coming down to eat you and things like that. But then when the Lutherans and especially the Monrovians came in with the missionaries, they found them ripe to convert them because they were so superstitious and they believed so. The town I was living in, 2,500 people, three churches. They were building a fourth,
Wow.
and even the government meetings, like they call it a Christmas party. They didn't even call it a holiday party. Like like, and I have no problem with that. But it start off with a prayer, and it's like, okay, I get you're religious, and I don't really have a problem with people praying, but let's not bring that into a government thing. Like I don't care about a
Yeah.
Christmas
Yeah.
party, but holding a prayer then I find that a little much. But whatever. Like I said, I found that the small town thing was they were really religious, but maybe it was because, like I said, because it was the Inuit.
Hmm. I think it's like there's other towns in this area that are very religious. I think that where I live, which is Summerland, it's different because It's like there's a lot of transplants from major cities here. So there's a lot of people who are from like Toronto. There's a lot of people from Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. And there's not a whole lot of people who grew up here who are still living here. Because a lot of the people who grow up here just want to get out of the small town, right?
Yeah.
But then people who grow up in the city want to get to the small town. So there's just a lot of transplants, and it's a very open-minded community. And I was actually quite surprised. I thought for sure that it would be different. I thought it would be really religious. I thought people would be super offended by my blog and stuff like that. Nobody cares. Like nobody cares. And they actually read it. And we have, because in this area we have a crisis with health workers. So we don't have enough doctors, nurses, stuff like that. And so we have a lot of doctors and nurses from other parts of the world. And like some of my friends are British who are doctors. Like I know a bunch of British doctors, and you know, they're all atheists. And and when they found out about my blog, I remember exactly that day he said to me, "No, that makes you way cooler." It's just, I don't know. It's just a really open-minded community, and it just makes living in the small town even better.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, okay, like I said, I was there in '86, and
Yeah.
I know it's changed a lot because I lived in Vancouver from '95 to like January of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'd go back to the Okanagan, in that time, and there'd been a huge change since the '80s. But yeah, in the family I was staying with, church every Sunday. They weren't obnoxious or anything about it. I'm not saying like anything like, but like it just seemed like the church or the churches were central to the community type of thing, at least back in the '80s, anyways.
They still are, but in a different way. Like we just use them like community centers now. Like that's where the kids go for karate lessons and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
I just want to get back to like something you said earlier, because so you weren't raised with any faith.
No, not
and
at
you were
all.
saying trying to understand, what makes this tick and why it works. Because I look at it from another way, because like I said, I believed, or I was raised to believe, that I stopped believing, and but then I see people who are either like you, atheists their whole lives, or stop believing whatever faith it came from, and then they start gravitating towards the secret, the law of attraction, or like,
Oh yeah.
like all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, what is it? Like, why are you doing that? I mean, now it's the social justice, like the woke or the red pilled,
Yeah.
basically the same thing. They're just idiots shouting out different things, but it's the same mentality. So I mean, I kind of look at it like from that. It's like it's all one dogma, but just different variations of it. And for whatever reason, we're going towards it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. We have after telling you that this town seems very open-minded and all that stuff, that the thing about here is like all these housewives. There's a lot of money in this town too, right? So there's a lot of housewives that I have no understanding of this, but they just, they just spend money and sit at home. But they're all like a lot of them, not all of them. There's a lot of really smart people too. I'm not suggesting it's all of them, but they're into like the alternative healing, the essential oils, the anti-vax, and it's like I have to bite my tongue so much with that stuff. And my mom is like that. And like yesterday I was arguing with her over whether or not it's better for you to eat organic celery or not. It's just like it's difficult. It's really difficult. They are totally just woo. There's a lot of woo here.
Yeah, but I mean that's just it. Like I don't know if you. It's kind of, like, there was a article that came out in Aereo magazine a little while ago, and it was done by James Lindsay. I keep referencing it a lot because it's I really like the article, and but he was looking at it from because he was one of the people that did all the I don't want to call them hoax papers, but they put in all the papers for like there was one about researching dog parks in Portland and observing the genitals of like 10,000 dogs, and So they were no, but they did some really off the wall papers, but they followed the methodology of like gender studies or feminist studies or critical race theory and all that. And they followed they quoted other papers. They did it like they did legitimate academic work, but on really weird topics. And so, but he did this article on the religious aspect of and what they're calling grievance studies. Like they coined that term, grievance studies, for all, like, collectively for all these things. And you watch it and you listen to them and it's the same kind of thing. Like I have a friend who's a big fan of or a big fan, like he's a big believer in the law of attraction, and I, just because I wanted to argue with him about it, I watched some of the videos, and they do a lot of the same things. Like if you have friends who don't believe, cut them out of your life.
Yeah.
So, like obviously with religion, especially like Islam, you're not even supposed to have friends who are other religions, right? It's so it's, I don't know, it's like this herd mentality. Like it, I don't know, if you could figure it out, let me know, because it's
Yeah. I think, like, because I don't know, my whole family's kind of like always had these issues with food, and it's just everybody has to have the most special diet, it's like a competition, and whoever has the least amount of things that they can eat is like the most special, and it's just, it drives me crazy because I will eat anything you put in front of me, and it drives me absolutely crazy. But honestly, I think for some people it's just it really is like a way for them to feel like they're different and special in some way, for them to believe these things or follow these things or have like the special knowledge or the insight, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you want to have the special knowledge and feel special, great, but why do you have to blab it to everyone? And they can see the same thing, like, why do you always talk about atheism? It's like, no, I don't. Like, it's just, I mean, okay, I know, like, okay, that's, you're doing your blog and stuff like that, but it's not the only thing that you're doing, and it's like, okay, you're promoting atheism. It's like, no, like a lot of the stuff you're doing, I know you talk about science and you put out, rational thought or whatever. It's like, like from my end, my only take on this is individual freedoms and individual liberties.
Yeah.
Believe whatever you want to believe. My fight will be on that. It's not that I have anything against the reason or the science. I think that's all great. But I'm like, okay, for me, it's a bigger principle issue. And I'm like, I want to take it on from this aspect, and any of these things, any of these nonsensical things that, it's like any kind of dogma. And it's, I'm starting to see like more and more of that. Like I was focusing a lot on religion for a while, and I was just trying to concentrate on some of the woo, but it's all the same nonsense. It's just,
I think with atheism too, like for me at least, I don't talk about it in real life, right? Like I don't sit down with my friends and have a beer and then start blabbing about the fact that I don't believe in God, right? Like I don't do that unless they bring it up. Unless they're asking me questions, I never bring it up, because I mean, you're in Canada, it's a non-thing. It's just a topic that doesn't often come up anymore in Canada, well, I don't know about the East Coast, but at least here, people don't talk about religion anymore, and it's a non-topic. And also, like, online, my Twitter handle, my blog, everything like that, it's very clear that it's about atheism, and I'm not pushing it on anybody who doesn't come to my spaces. I don't go after them. They come to my spaces and they come and talk to me, or they'll read my blog and have a problem with it, but I'm not pushing it on people, and like the Jehovah's Witnesses that come to my door, which any minute now they're going to knock. But I don't do that. And that's the difference, is that when I write for my fellow atheists, and other people tend to find it, and that's fine. I'm totally fine with having rational conversations with other people. And, if they want to pick my brain about atheism, then that's fine. But my blog, my social spaces about atheism are for fellow atheists. They're for the purpose of making them feel less alone. They're for the purpose of me kind of just being like fascinated by people who have believed and left and what they've gone through. And that's really it. That's all it is. And that's a major difference. Like, my mom will come over with her alternative remedies for everything, and she'll be like, do this, do that. I don't do that. I don't push it on anybody.
Okay, it's just a little tangent here. The alternative remedies thing. There's this water called Zamzam water, and it's you can get it near where you do Hajj, so near the Kaaba. And I don't know, I can't remember the exact story. It was like someone, I think it might have been Abraham's housemaid when he like Ishmael's mother, when they got lost in the desert and they were thirsty, and this spring came up and blah blah blah. That's where this water's from, right? Mm-hmm. So it's supposed to have healing properties and stuff. And people actually, like, there's all kinds of microbes. People get E. coli, and they get all kinds of sicknesses from it. It's pretty rude. But anyways, a friend of my mom's went there, brought it back. She was at my place, and it was like, I had to get a kidney removed, and it was just before the surgery. I was going for a test, and I was supposed to be fasting, but I could drink water. And she's like, here, have some of this before you go in for the test. I was like, okay, whatever, fine. I wasn't going to argue with her. I was just going to drink it. Then she started freaking out because she's like, it might affect the test. I'm like, it's water, Mom. She's like, oh, no, you don't understand. It's not water. And I'm annoyed, and I'm getting frustrated, and she's just going on for about 10 or 15 minutes. Finally, I just grabbed the water from her hand. I said, the magic's not going to affect the test. Just drink it. She's like afraid that this was going to affect the test somewhere. And I'm like, well, I thought you wanted it to affect the test. I thought I was supposed to drink it to make me do better or whatever. Like,
I don't understand it. I just, you know what? Also, I think a lot, like, especially with alternative remedies and like health fads, I think that part of it is it's driven by the fear of death, which is similar to religion, right? It's driven by the fear of death and the need to feel like you're in some kind of control over when you die and how you age and all of that stuff, and not getting cancer and stuff like that, right? Like, that's at least the experience with my family. They want to feel like they are in complete control of all of these things. But the thing is that, like, my mom's one of 5 siblings, and they're all, except for one of them, they're all on these health kicks with these alternative remedies, and they're sure they've got the clue to how to live a cancer-free life, but all of them have had cancer. And it's like, it's not working. Like, just live your life. You only have one, like, just relax and live your life. And I don't know. Like, they won't wear sunscreen. None of them will wear sunscreen. And my mom has had skin cancer. Like, put 2 and 2 together. I've never had skin cancer, and I wear sunscreen every day of my life, even in the winter. So
that's the vitamin C.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually talk about the series of articles you did on your blog, because I really liked them. They were the atheists on death row. Because, mm-hmm. like, I've done some work with the military, and you always hear about there's no atheists in foxholes. And, well, you know what? I met plenty of them. I was in bunkers with people who weren't praying when we were getting shelled and stuff. Like, so. But yeah, no, I really like that series you did on, like, the atheists in death row, because, if you're a religious, you can get the chaplain or someone to come by, and you can, at least they can do last rites or something. And I know even the atheists can talk to the chaplains, and they can talk to the people in the prisons, right? But there is none of that finality there. I'm just wondering, like, are you doing more in that series? Are you done with that, or what's?
No, I've just been focusing on getting the book written, because it's really difficult with kids and people in the house, general people. But it's really difficult, and I've been like wanting to do this for so long, so I've just decided I'm just focusing on the book until it's done. And then what I want to do is, because the series we met Pablo, who's on death row in Texas, and there's a very good case for his actual innocence, and I have been in contact with his lawyer and also some people on the side of in the family of the victim. And I've been planning to do, I'm hoping that I can do like a podcast on it. So it would be like a true crime podcast where we just go through the case with the evidence and everything like that. And maybe make a difference in this guy's life. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
But that would be towards the second half of the year, I think.
Well, that's not so far off.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I gotta get writing. Well, I'm more than halfway done the book, so
All right, that's all right. No, because like I said, it was just like the way you're writing that also because people would just assume, okay, if you're on, the whole trope, like if you're on, deathbed, you're gonna pray for God. So I could see a place like death row where wanting to reach out might be some form of comfort. I mean, you don't really have much else.
yeah.
But yeah. So
He doesn't seem to like he has no pull towards religion, and he knows that like he when I've talked to him, he doesn't seem to really push the innocence thing, even though he says he's innocent. He doesn't like that's not his primary focus. I think he's like just given up, and he's kind of come to terms with the fact that he's going to be put to death one day. And I mean, that's such a terrible thing to say. I just hate having to say those things, those words. But he has no pull at all towards religion, despite knowing that there's a very good chance that he's going to be put to death.
Okay. Well, anyways, this is getting a little bit of a downer, so maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to you about something like because it was a podcast you done with Donovan, and this is going back a while, so I might have had to refresh myself on it. But you guys were talking a bit about Islam, and generally I agree with like I hate that thing. Well, I don't agree with everything you said, but there was a couple of things you brought up where, again, I'm not going to try to put you on the spot here because this was a few months back. So I don't, like obviously you can't remember everything you said but you talked about that guy in BC, in Burnaby, he killed a girl and he was a refugee, and you mentioned something about Charlie Hebdo. And like I said, it was just these two little things, like, okay, the refugee thing. I had a different take on it, and not so much because, okay, he killed a girl, he must be ISIS, this and that, right? My take on that was he's emblematic of why taking in as many refugees as we did and why Trudeau wants to bring in more, there's an issue with it. Like you were saying, okay, it doesn't have everything to do with Islam. It might not have anything to do with Islam, and I agree with you there. But you can't just completely discount that. My thing with this was you took in so many refugees so fast. This guy was just let out on the street and he was living with the general population. Was he getting counseling? Like, I've been in war zones. I haven't seen anything near as bad as what I think this guy saw because he was under ISIS for a few years, right? So he must have saw some pretty horrific stuff. Was he suffering some PTSD? Did he see that girl and whatever reason had an attack, thought she was being, there's a bomb coming or something. He thought he was trying to protect her, ended up killing her. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to make any defense for him. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm saying, but you also have to take into account that there is a fundamentalist mentality, especially if you're living under ISIS. I don't know anything about this guy. I'm not trying to put anything on, but I'm just saying, like, you can't just out of hand discount saying, okay, it had nothing to do with Islam. Because he might have had that mentality where, well, she's a kafir, she looks like she's old enough to started menstruating, so she's mine. Like, he could have had that. I don't know, but I think the issue that a lot of people weren't talking about was that how are the refugees being treated? Like, if we want to bring people in and it's laudable and it's great, they're in a war zone, these people need a place to go, but if we can provide proper services for 15,000, let's bring in 15,000. Let's not bring in 30,000 and half-ass it. Like, like I think that's. I'm not saying that the death of the girl was a thing to just put us aside or anything like that. I'm just thinking that we should not. Like, this shouldn't have been made about whether you let in more refugees or not. It should have been made about the care the refugees are getting, and I don't think anyone's really talking about that. I think that's more of an issue with that case than Islam could be. Like I said, it wasn't really a bone of contention, but it's just I thought you were a little too. And again, sorry to bring, like, I don't want to, like, maybe I should have mentioned it too, but it was just like, it's a few months back, so I don't want, I'm not asking you to defend. I'm just giving a couple little critiques, And then the Charlie Hebdo thing, I think you said the same thing, like, oh, you can't be 100% sure if they did it on it for Islam. These guys walked in and said, yelled Allahu Akbar and said, we're doing this to avenge our prophet. I don't think you have much reason to doubt they were doing it because of Islam. Like I said, it's, those were just the two little things. Like I'm finding, and I'm not kind of putting this on you, but I'm finding a lot people are trying to give excuses for this that aren't being asked for.
Yeah. Well, I think with the first guy, I know that there's a chance that it had something to do with Islam. Yeah. I think my point, I can't remember what I said. Like I said, exactly.
I'm not trying to like have you defend it or anything like that, because I'm not accusing anything. I'm just giving you a couple of little critiques.
But what I think, like, my opinion that exists in my head right now is that you can't know. And so you can't for sure blame Islam, because I mean, I've met tons and tons of Muslims who are not in any way violent or have those feelings, right? Like they've been to a lot of degree westernized as well, because the Muslims that I've met and known have all lived here, right? But well, not necessarily. I have done a lot of traveling, but yeah, I don't think that there's any way to know if it had anything to do with Islam, but I do think it's definitely a possibility for sure. But with Charlie Hebdo, like, I've always felt that was definitely to do with Islam. And if I said something that made me sound like I didn't think that, I didn't mean it, or it came out wrong, because I wrote a huge long article about it too. It was absolutely 100% to do with Islam. And I wrote a blog post. It was a letter to, you remember the shootings in Garland, Texas? So I wrote an open letter to the mothers of the shooters. And I wrote that I'm just really sorry that someone wasn't there loud enough. There wasn't an atheist loud enough to shake their faith before they went and did something like that, because I'm sure that deep down inside, they were decent people who thought they were doing the right thing, right? Like, they were convinced that they were doing something that was good for God. And if you shake that just a little bit, like, nobody's saying take their faith away, but if you shake that just a little bit, they're not willing to kill for it, right? And
I don't know. Again, like I said, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot or anything. It's just like I said,
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It was just a... But yeah, I mean, but I see it a lot, especially more and more. You have like, and it's causing like too much backlash. It's always, nothing to do with Islam. And I mean, like the two examples that you can give recently were the Christchurch shooting, and then the shooting in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday. Mm-hmm. Now, right after the Christchurch shooting, I had friends of mine who were putting up things like whiteness. All white people are responsible for all white supremacy. It's even if you're not racist or you think you're not racist, you are in some way responsible for this. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm like, okay, if you're going to do that, are you going to put up something that says the shooting in Sri Lanka was dependent on Muslimness? So all Muslim people are responsible for that. Like, the people who say that, I don't want any issue. I don't want to deal with, because they're just wrong. And then the people who say, it has nothing to do with Islam or whatever. Like, if you had said that guy had nothing to do with, white supremacy or whatever, like, no, there's issues here, right? Like, and so I find that a lot. And I'm, I know people who are like, now, well, with Trump in, I don't want to speak out against Islam because look what Trump's doing. It's like, why are you letting these people dictate what you decide is right and wrong? And that's my take on like those kind of issues. Like, if it's wrong, it's wrong. Let's call mm-hmm. it out. It's, and like that's it. Just maybe I'm hypersensitive to that because I see it a lot, but I don't know.
I totally agree with you. And it's like, coming from like, as an activist that likes to raise awareness for wrongful convictions, and I'm very against the death penalty, as you probably have been made aware. But um, like, it drives me crazy when other people aren't as pissed off about this shit as I am, right? Like, but then I have to talk to myself. I have to like reason with myself and be like, they have other things. They have other things that are pressing in their lives and stuff like that. And it hasn't affected them. And you can't expect every person on earth to care about the same issues that you care about. And I think that that's kind of, people don't know how to reason with themselves and tell themselves, like, I think that a lot of the woke people, I think that they look at white people as a whole and they don't see enough of us fighting to change things, and so they just want to blame all of us. And it's just, you can't do that. You have to continue to try to raise awareness, and you have to continue to try and get people to care, but you have to be prepared for the fact that some people just have other things that they care about, because everybody's different and not everybody's affected by the same things, right? And like prison issues is a really good example, because nobody gives a fuck until someone they know goes to prison, right? Nobody cares. I have tried to get people to care. My posts about prison issues and wrongful convictions and the death penalty and all that stuff, these are my least clicked on posts, my least commented on posts, my least shared posts, my least tweeted posts. Nobody cares until someone they love or care about goes to prison. And then all of a sudden they're, oh, this is a problem, right? And so I think that that's the reasoning that a lot of these people are missing, that not everybody is going to cling to the same issues that you do, and you can't expect them to. And I think that that's part of the reason why some of the crazy abortion bills have been passing in the States too, is because it's just the people who are voting and the people who are able to make change there just don't care about it because it doesn't affect them yet. But when it does, that's when they're going to be pissed off, right? But I think that like people who blame all white people are unable to see that some of us, just have other things that we care about, and it's not that we don't care about that stuff. It's just that that's not the top thing on our list, and there are other issues that are just as important and just as serious, and that some of us focus on. But I don't know, that's just my take.
Yeah, no, but okay, like the whiteness thing, that bugs me, because I'm getting really pissed off at the anti-racists.
Yeah.
Like, basically the message I'm getting from them is I'm feeble and I'm weak, and I need someone to protect me from the evil white people. And it's, usually a good white person, right? Who's freaking out about whiteness and shit. And it's like, no. But that's what I mean. It's like this allyship stuff. Like, oh, you're an ally. Give up your position for a person of color, and like, fuck off. I want the job because I'm the most qualified. I want to get the promotion because I'm most qualified. I don't want someone snickering behind my back if I make a mistake, saying, "See, he was only hired because he's brown." Like, I don't want that shit.
Yeah.
I want, and I understand, like, when the civil rights movement and all that was going on, and you did like some of the affirmative action stuff, but it doesn't do anyone any good. Like, if you're purposely letting in people into universities who aren't gonna make it, you're hurting them,
Mm-hmm.
you're hurting your university, and you're creating animosity. So, like, let's say, okay, we need to let in, they set a quota. Take the people who, okay, if we up their SAT scores, they would get in. Take those people and say, you know what? For the first year, instead of doing 4 years for your bachelor's, you're going to do 5. But the first year, you're going to go to a community college, and you're going to take, these courses that'll prep you for the program you want to get into. Save a space. Get them caught up to speed. They're not like losing an education or anything like that. It's taking them a year longer, but you're actually fixing a problem, saying, okay, you know what? You wouldn't have made it if you weren't that identity, we're gonna put you in. It's like this treating me like I'm a little kid, treating me like I can't cope without their help, and then this thing that's, only white people can be racist. Like racism is prejudice plus power. Like fuck off. To be racist, to be bigoted, to be prejudicial is part of being human. We all do it to one extent or another. So you're telling me that I'm lesser than human or something? Like I because I can't be racist? Like I don't accept that crap. And I don't think anyone should.
I agree. I totally agree. I've said that before with Islam, because you've probably experienced this too when you're on social spaces or whatever, and you're talking, and you can criticize Christianity until you're blue in the face, but as soon as you start criticizing Islam, people start freaking out. They'll, and it's always white people. They're always replying, saying, "Yeah, but Christianity too. Yeah, but Christianity too." I'm like, have you been paying attention? I know Christianity too. That's all I talk about. This is just one fucking comment about Islam. Like, I know Christianity too. But they just can't let you. It's as though they're saying Christians can handle it because they're predominantly white. They can cope with being criticized. But these people are special, and they can't cope with, and we have to protect them. That's what they're saying, is that people who fall under Islam are more delicate than people who fall under Christianity.
I mean, okay, like I was jokingly, I call that benevolent bigotry, but I also said like they can't see the victims for the brown people.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly it. They think that it's like white knighting, but for races,
But it's like, look, I'm not saying there isn't racism. I think I mentioned this to you before. And this is when the people calling me a packy or whatever didn't bother me anymore. I was about 14 or 15. I was taking public transit in Montreal. On the seat back in front of me on the bus, it was written, like someone wrote white power, black caca. And the only word they spelled correctly was caca. So it's like, you know what? I'm better than you. That was it. From that point on, like, people calling me stupid names, I could deal with. I understand where it's coming from and whatever. But like these anti-racist people who are so racist, and it's like, they come at you smiling, and it's like, if you go back to religion, it's like the devil will come at you with a smile and a pleasant look, right? And it's exactly what it is. They're just like, I'm like, no, you guys are such racists. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. I know. I don't. What was it that Sam calls it? The racism of lower expectations.
Yeah, that's that exactly was actually. It was George W. Bush's speechwriter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and George W. Bush popularized that term. It was the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's what it is. It's exactly what it is.
It's soft bigotry. It's full on bigotry. Don't call it soft bigotry, because it is. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I find that more offensive. I find it more offensive when someone tells me that, oh, you know what, we have to come fix your problems. That's pretty offensive on its own. But then they tell me we have to come fix your problems because we caused your problems because you were perfectly good without us, and you were too facile to cause your own problems. The noble savage thing. I find that far more offensive than someone calling me a packy or a raghead or whatever. Like that's just ignorance and that's stupidity. But the other thing, it's like, oh, there's so much condescension in that, and there's so much, telling you that you are so much lesser than everyone else and that you need this help. Like, honestly, go fuck yourself. Like, not you, but
Yeah, I know. No, I totally agree with you on that one. It drives me crazy too. It's like, I don't think that they understand what equality means. Like, equality doesn't mean special treatment. And I feel, as a woman, I feel the same way. Like there's a lot of things that affect women that I take very seriously, like these bills that have been passing in the States. That bothers me a lot. But other stuff, like what was it? There's something about like representation in the job space, or no, you know what it was? It was Game of Thrones. It was at the end of Game of Thrones. It was like some article about how the women in Game of Thrones didn't end up so well. And it's just like they dominated. I don't know if you watched it, but the
Yeah.
women basically dominated. The entire series was about powerful women. And like every single, with the exception of Jon Snow, every single main character and Tyrion, every single main character was a woman, and they were all the ones in control. Like they even ended up controlling Jon Snow, right? Like it was all about women, and because it didn't end with them in that position of power, it's like now you're gonna be upset about that. That's different from equality. That's, you want more than men, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's, for me, I love men. I love the men in my life. I like having men as friends and stuff like that. I'm raising a boy, and I don't want, I don't want more than they have. I just want to be the same is all.
Yeah, but that's just it. Like equality under the law, right? You know, and granted, there are still issues, and there's still stuff that, you know, like you're talking about, like the abortion laws that they were just doing in the States, whatever. But you have to grant that equality under the law, and for the most part, in Western liberal democracies, you know, we're pretty damn close to it. You know, like, I mean,
Yeah.
there might be things that I'm not aware of because, you know, it doesn't affect me, and okay, fine, I'm being a little assholeish, I guess, because it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. But you know, I mean, like, but there is, you know, there is real, you know, like what's going on in Iran right now. Like, let's just take that for an example, like the White Wednesdays and stuff. And you know, it doesn't mean that if there's sexual harassment going on, or, you know, you're being sexually harassed, that you don't speak up about it, because obviously that's an issue for you. But you can't compare the misogyny of an air conditioner being on too high as opposed to women getting lashed for not wearing the hijab. I mean, there's
Yeah.
got to be some proportion here or something. Like,
Yeah. I think it all comes down to this need to be the special one. It's the same thing with the special diets that my family have. You know, it's the need to be, it's the victim, like different levels of victimhood, you know, like everybody's got to be a bigger victim than everybody else. And that drives me crazy, because as someone who has, I've been through 2 violent crimes, and I hate calling myself a victim, even though technically in the eyes of the law, that's what I am, twice. And I hate it. Like, that makes me feel disgusting to have that word anywhere near me, because I don't feel like a victim in any way, shape, or form. And for people to like be like, okay, the air conditioning is on too much, and so I'm being victimized, it makes me so mad. Like, so mad. I can't stand it.
yeah, but it's, again, living up north, and, you know, I was living in an Inuit community, and there's a lot of problems up there, and there's a lot of issues. There is no one smoking gun. There's plenty of things that have gone on wrong. But then I you know, I had friends who were working up there, and they're working in social work or for the health department, and they're all coming at it from different angles. None of them talk to each other, but the majority of the ones who were doing it were, you know, fresh out of school or a little bit older than that. And it was just all the time, it was about how, oh my God, you're victims. Oh my God, you're victims. It's like, these people are incredibly resilient and incredibly strong. Like, look at where they live. You know, there wasn't proper
Yeah.
housing until the 50s. These people were, like, honestly, up until the 50s and stuff, they were still kind of semi-nomadic. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they survive in one of the harshest climates in the world. They're strong, resilient people. Show them how to overcome these things. Don't perpetually tell them that they've been victimized and that they need help, because the only help they need is how to go about making themselves better and working within the system that they're now, not just this perpetual, oh, poor you, poor you, poor you. And I'm not, like, again, you know, people are like, how can you be so callous? Yes, plenty of stuff that went wrong. I mean, I can give you a list off the top of my head, and there is like forced migration from one community to further up north where they didn't know how to live there because it was too far north from where they were used to. So it was like mass starvation. And the Canadian government did it so you could keep, we needed people near the Arctic. Like, shit like that. But then the people who are saying you're victims, they'll complain about, cultural appropriation. That's how they're being made victims. It's like, no, they were being made victims because of something like that. And it's just like you said, they minimalize the term. They actually take away from real harm, and they're not doing anyone any good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it, because as someone who has been through these crimes, like that is what being a victim feels like, right? Like you have these people who are complaining about air conditioning and stuff like that, or people looking at you funny or whatever. You're not being victimized, okay? You're not fucking being victimized in that situation. And I don't have any, I don't know, like some people might think that I'm a little bit cold sometimes when it comes to like little things going wrong and stuff like that, but I'm a suck it up type of person. Like just fucking suck it up and get over it. Like life is too short to dwell on the little things, and there's always going to be little things, and you're never going to eliminate them. You're never going to eliminate assholes. You're never going to eliminate people who treat you in a way that you aren't perfectly comfortable with, and you have to cope. You have to find a way to cope. And it doesn't make you a victim. It doesn't make you a victim.
Yeah, it's like when I used to work in overseas, so especially Afghanistan, I'd come back, on leave, and I'd sit with my friends, and they're like sitting there, and typical things I'm complaining about now that I would have laughed at before. It's like, oh, my server didn't come on at work. I couldn't do this. It was such a rough day. It's like, asshole. It was like minus 18 in Kabul the other night, and I had to wake up in the middle of the night to go take a pee. So I have to put on my boots and my coat and my jacket because it's in another tent. Like, fuck you, your server was down. Or like,
yeah.
It's like there was 1 week in Kandahar where midday it got to about 60 degrees. And like that's Celsius, right? Like, and I was just like,
holy crap.
Yeah. It was in the summer. It was nuts. I mean, we had to shut the servers down during the day because they just couldn't cope. It was too hot. We had to like pretty much work after sundown.
Wow.
It was, but yeah, like, I mean, like, but now, now I'm back, and it's like, I get pissed off when they don't have the flavor ice cream I want in the store.
Yeah. I had a similar experience when it was when I was 15. My parents took me to Thailand, and we went to Bangkok, and we went to this night market, which happened to be in Pat Pong, which was the red light district. And like, that was the most changing moment in my life, because I was walking down the street and I saw girls who were younger than me that were sex workers. And like, you look at them and they're younger than you, and it's just it is completely fucking jarring when you're 15 years old and a girl, and you see girls who are younger than you, and you know what they're doing out there, and you like make eye contact with them, and they like they hate you, right? They hate you immediately because they know that you don't have to go and fuck anybody tonight. It's really awful, but you come home with a more grounded sense of your own privilege, because and the fact that you shouldn't just don't complain about the little things, just leave them alone, because those girls would pay anything to be able to complain about these little things. Yeah. And it gives you a real sense of reality. But I honestly think that part of the problem today is just that so many people, so many of the generation that came after mine were raised so just sheltered, and I call them the hand sanitizer generation, where you can't touch a germ, and they pulled out all our fun playgrounds from when I was a kid and replaced them with things that they just sit there and don't do anything.
Yep.
They're supposed to have fun there.
Have you read the book by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff, The Coddling of the American Mind?
No.
Okay, I highly recommend it. They talk a lot about this. It's just they break it off. I think people who were born after 85 and people who were born before, and then even out like when you go after 85, it also starts going when like the woke thing really broke out on the universities. Like they also break it down on when people started university, but it's like the helicopter parenting, the you always have to be around. There's always an adult. Kids aren't left to figure things out on their own. I noticed that in my nephew. Smart kid, like he does really well in school, but he can't figure out simple problems in front of him. Like I was, like my sister was down with him, and it was near his birthday, so I was taking him to Toys R Us to buy something. There was a Walmart right next door. My sister's like, meet me in the Walmart. So we go into Toys R Us, get something for him. We go to the Walmart, and he sees his mom, but there's like pallets of bottles of Coke between him and my sister. So instead of going around and working it out, I don't know, maybe he was excited or whatever, but I mean, the kid's 12, so he should have been able to have some, but he goes running towards the pallets of Coke like he's going to go through them. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you... and like he couldn't figure it out. I'm like, no, just go around. And it's like I'm not trying to be disparage my nephew or anything. Like I said, he's a smart kid, whatever, but he doesn't know how to cope for things himself. Like he's always supervised. There is nothing left unsupervised.
Yeah. I can't parent that way because like I know that the more trust I give my son and the more responsibility I give my son, the better he feels about himself. And like the number one thing for me with him is I just want him to be happy. Like I don't need him to be the best at school. I don't need him to be the best baseball player. I don't need any of that shit. I just want him to be happy. And there's so many kids today that are like, my stepdaughter went to this youth group in town for a little while, and now my dad sits on the board. It's like a non-profit organization, and it's like a trend with the teenagers in this group where they're bragging about how much depression they have and how much anxiety they have, right? And if you go on like Facebook, and if you have any teenage girls as friends, which I do because I have a teenage stepdaughter, and if you have any teenage girls as friends on your Facebook, it's just meme after meme after meme about their depression and their anxiety. And it's like a trend. It's not even, they're not even considering it as a real thing. It's just this trend, like who can be the most depressed and who can be the most anxious. And like, I just don't want my son anywhere near that shit because it's bullshit. And, I think that more and more kids are getting anxiety and becoming depressed because they don't know how to cope with the real world, because they've never been allowed to meet the real world head on their own and make their own decisions and decide how they are going to deal with this situation. And so we give our kids so much freedom. We live in a small town. Granted, it's easier to do that here. It's safer, but it's like we give them so much freedom. We barely ever see my stepdaughter now, which is fine considering where she came from. She was extremely depressed and for real, and she had real anxiety to the point where she wasn't getting out of bed for months at a time. And now she's out all the time with her friends, so we're not complaining. But she, we give them so much freedom because that's how kids learn to kind of interact in the real world and solve problems as they come to you. And that's how they feel good about themselves too. That's how you avoid getting depressed and anxious and stuff like that, is by feeling like you can handle shit.
Yeah. I grew up in the 70s. So, we leave in the morning, like on weekends, right? We leave in the morning, and unless like all the kids are going to come back to my place for lunch, I wouldn't see my parents again until the lights went out. Come home for dinner. Yeah. That was it. And everyone was like that. We go to one kid's house for lunch, so that mom that day would make like whatever, like bologna sandwiches or something, and then we'd all go out again. Like, and
yeah,
if we got into an argument, we figured it out. There's a movement now, like I'm following it on Twitter. I don't have kids or anything, but it's just because I like this idea. It's free range kids.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. It was
Yeah,
actually a book, and it's a really good book.
yeah. And it'd be like, yeah, like you said, give them a little bit of responsibility. Obviously, you're not going to say, yeah, go rebuild this engine. Like you're not going to,
Yeah.
or you're not going to give a 6-year-old a chainsaw, but
Yeah, don't
give,
don't drop them off in the middle of a seedy neighborhood, you
yeah.
know?
But
Like
I mean, you know,
not unless they have a gun anyway.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, you can let them play in the park across the street from your house. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I keep
I
reading stories
fucking
about
hate
that.
play date. Like I hate play date.
Uh,
I hate the term play date. Like
But
I didn't have play dates when I was a kid. I
no,
just left my house and my friends were there. Like,
exactly. Or you go to the park and you make new friends, and it's just like that was it. But I mean, that
yeah,
I keep hearing stories about mother, arrested for was investigated because there was one exactly like that. Park was across the street from her house. Kids went to play in there. Someone called Child Protective Services, and they were investigated because did they have a fit home to take care of these children? And the kids were like 11 and 12.
holy crap.
And I'm like, what? 11 and 12? They can't go across the street to play in the park by themselves? Like obviously you're not going to let a 3-year-old go do that, but 11 and 12, I think that's like, can't you start babysitting like around 12 or 13?
Yeah. That would never happen here though, because we thankfully have a pretty healthy population of, you know, farmers and dudes who work on the oil fields, and they would not have that shit.
No.
They'd be like, "Oh, you're working the farm."
Well, that's just it. I mean, like I think like small towns, obviously that's a big advantage, where kids can be kids, and like I've never really looked at it from the depression or the anxiety point of view. I know in the book, the Coddling the American Mind, they talk about that, but like I've never. But just to me, it's like it's not fun. Like you're talking about play dates or whatever. Like it's like organized fun. It's like no, go out in the middle of the park and throw mud at each other and do whatever. Or like like have
Yeah.
fun, be kids.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we just got a new skate park built in town, and so my son just goes there every day, and we got him a phone in case he needs anything, just a cheap phone. And so he goes there every day with his gang of friends, and they go buy Slurpees at the 7-Eleven, and he's out until like 7:30. And then, on the weekends it's the same thing, gone all day. And there's never been a problem, and he's happy and he falls asleep, which, if you're like, when we first moved here and we didn't know anybody and you had to kind of make play dates in order for him to play with anybody, he would never sleep because he wasn't getting enough stimulation, and now he's just out all day long, and he comes home and he's like, he actually falls asleep on the couch, which he has never done before. He's really into Star Trek right now, which I love. And so we've been watching Star Trek, and he falls asleep on the couch, and he has never done this before. Like, he's a child who has never needed very much sleep, and it's just awesome. He's exhausting himself, and he's happy, and he's got so many friends. And I don't understand people who just like hover over their kids, because you're hurting them. You're genuinely hurting them when you do that.
Yeah, my cousin, if she hears this, probably won't, but if she does hear it, she'll freak out. I mean, she has like her kids play outside in the backyard, and before they come in, she cleans the underside of their shoes, and they come in, and then there she gets them to change into another set of shoes or slippers to come into the house. I mean, it's like so sanitized. It's so nutty. I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're ruining all the fun. Like, come on.
I am a clean freak, but I had to, like, that was like one of the hardest adjustments to having a kid, was coming to the realization that my house is never going to be clean again. Like, never.
Excuse me. Staying on the thing with kids, like, I just curious, do you find it hard? I don't like the term like raising your kid atheist or whatever, because there's nothing really to do. You just don't force any religion on them. But I mean, do you find it hard when they come back from school and they have questions, or if their friends are religious or anything like that, or like, do they wonder about why don't we go to some building once a week or anything like that? Or
No, there's really no religious people here, at least none that talk about it. So outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses. But he's never, I don't think he's ever met people who have talked to him about their religion. But we talk about it because he knows what I do, and he's asked me lots of questions about it before. He'll see like some of the stuff that I have around books and stuff like that. And my screensaver I have dual monitors here, and my screensaver is all the memes of quotes that I've made. It all just kind of float around. And so he reads them and he asks me about them. And we have really good conversations. And then, of course, watching Star Trek, we have conversations like that all the time now, because Star Trek is fucking amazing. But he gets it. I don't find it hard at all. He gets it. I just tell him, like, people believe this stuff. I have never felt a reason to believe it myself, because there's no evidence. There's just no reason there's no good reason to believe it. And if you want to, that's totally up to you. And he has kind of the same reaction I did when I was a kid. When I was around religious people, or if I heard about religious stuff, it was really weird. Like, that's just how it felt to me. It was like, oh my God, this is so weird right now. I have to get out of here. You know, if people started praying in front of me, I was like, I would get so tense. It was just so weird. It's like if you were in the presence of someone who's completely insane and in the wild throes of an attack, you know, it's just like losing their mind. That's how I felt. I just felt like this is not a safe place for me, and I have to get out of here. But I think that's kind of how he feels about religious stuff too. He just it feels really strange to him. And I think that that's something that is similar amongst many people who are raised without religion, is that it's just very weird, like really off-puttingly weird.
Okay, look, I was raised with it, and yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, you know, come on, like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much to make fun of, but like, okay, the one thing I kind of harp on a bit is the night journey, right? So Muhammad went to the moon at night. He flew on the Burak, which is supposed to be like a donkey with a human face and wings and whatever. But I always joke, I'm like, okay, he went from Mecca to Jerusalem, then he had to go from Jerusalem to heaven, so there was no direct Burak from Mecca to heaven, so you had to actually connecting one in Jerusalem, like.
That's the hub.
Yeah, but that's just it. Like, why couldn't it go straight? Or the whole, you have to face Mecca to pray, right? And it's almost always facing east. But I was like, okay, well, if you're in India, shouldn't you face west because it's closer westerly? And I said, even if you're in Canada, you can still face west. I mean, technically it's a globe, but you're facing the same way. You're facing towards it. Doesn't matter if it's east or west. Like, it just.
None of it makes sense.
No.
Like,
my favorite is when like you'll have like what was her Katie Holmes, when she left Scientology, she's like, oh, it was so crazy, I'm glad I could be back in a normal faith like Catholicism. Like,
yeah, I know.
Okay, you know, there are different degrees of nuttiness, but you know, Scientology is up there, but Catholicism has got its own fair share.
I think the only difference, though, I've been reading a lot about Mormonism lately, and it's like, you want to talk about nutty.
Oh,
holy crap!
You get your own planet.
It's nuttier than squirrel shit. But anyway, like, I think the difference between Scientology, Mormonism, and then all the older religions is just that Scientology and Mormonism, we know the origins. We know, like, we were there. Like, people who are alive today were alive when those well, not Mormonism, but you know, Scientology, and like, it's more recent, and we can actually trace everything back to like these single events and these single people and what happened, and we have records that show, like, you know, that Joseph Smith was in prison for seer stones, for like taking people's money, and then he as soon as he got out of prison, he used those same seer stones to start the Mormon religion, and nobody's like, hello.
Yeah. Well, you should, if you're looking into Mormonism, look into the Ahmadiyya community in Islam, and they started in the 1800s as well. And the guy who started up said, okay, Muhammad was the last prophet who brought the law, but then there will be other prophets who've come. They're having other prophets who've come since, and I'm the latest one of these, to reinterpret the law, right? So in Pakistan, they can't hold public office. They're not considered real Muslims. Their mosques get burnt down, this and that. But he was another guy who he wasn't quite as much of a huckster as Smith, but he's got his own stuff. Like, they basically had their own city. He was collecting money from them. It was very cultish like too. But so it was kind of like a Mormonism of Islam. But then they also did. They would send missionaries out. A friend of mine, his father was an Ahmadi missionary who came to Canada from Pakistan, which you normally think of it going like the other way around, but nope, sent over here and to spread the good word of Ahmadi Muslims. So yeah, if you, like I said, if you're looking into Mormonism, take a look into that. It's kind of interesting. There's a guy on Twitter, Reason on Faith, and he's Ahmadi, or ex-Ahmadi, and he just recently put out a video about why it's like he did a really good job. It's about 45 minutes to an hour long. Why he left Islam, all his reasoning behind it. He talks a bit about the Ahmadi faith. It's really interesting. Like I said, if you're into that, it'd be a good stepping stone. Okay, I want to get your opinion on something here because I think I'm in the minority here of the way I'm thinking about it. It's this law in Quebec. I don't know if you've heard about it. I don't know if it's 21 or 26. But anyways, a lot of people are calling it the anti-hijab law, but what it is, no public servant can wear a religious symbol. And I'm opposed to it, not because I want to spread religion or anything, but I'm opposed to it on a first principles point of view. A lot of my friends who are opposed to it, like, oh my God, this is so racist. It's because you're banning the hijab. And the people who are for it are also arguing for it on the basis of the hijab, and they're saying this is everything to do with secularism, and they use a French term called laïcité. Laïcité is a little bit firmer than secularism. Laïcité goes as far as to say the government cannot pass a law on how people practice their faith. Like, it's even more of a separation. Like, not only do you not want religion coming into politics, you do not want politics meddling with religion whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And in my view, like, it goes against these. Like, I'm just wondering, if you'd heard about it or what your thoughts on that law were.
I think I've heard little bits and pieces of it, but I don't know the full, I don't know exactly what it is. But as far as banning government workers from wearing religious symbols, I would be against that too, because I get you not wanting to have religion in politics, but these are people, who are just kind of serving roles in the politics. They're not bringing the religious symbol for the purpose of the politics. They're just wearing it as a personal expression. And I don't have a problem with people doing that in any way. The only time I ever really feel concerned about that stuff is when I don't know what it's called when they cover their whole face.
The niqab. Well, you have the niqab and the burqa. The burqa is like the little mesh thing. The niqab is with the slits.
Okay. Yeah, I always get confused with all of those words. Okay. But that I have a problem with, because I think that you should be able to see the person's face. I just think that, you're not allowed to walk into a bank with a
motorcycle helmet.
What are they called? Yeah. You got to take any face coverings off for safety reasons and security reasons, and I don't think that anybody should be exempt from that, because that's playing favorites, right? That's giving one religion more over the others. But as far as people wearing that to work, as long as it's not covering their face, I don't have a problem with that at all.
See, that's my basic stance. It's like, okay, we have first principles, and the most foundational one is the freedom of expression and the freedom to practice your religion. And that's my take on this. This is government telling you how to practice your faith. But it's taking it one step further. I'm like, okay, this is also kind of in a way stepping on the principle of innocent until proven guilty, because you're saying by the fact that this person's wearing their thing, they're going to make other people uncomfortable, or they might not be able to do their job, or like you said, they're pushing a religion. You don't know anything about this person except for they're wearing a hijab or a yarmulke or a Star of David or a crucifix or a Sikh turban or whatever. And based on that, you're prejudging them, like you're being prejudicial and you're being bigoted. I'm not talking about racism because it's against brown people or anything like that. I'm talking about this principle that you're just based on some physical characteristic, granted it's a piece of clothing or jewelry or whatever, you're putting all this stuff on people and you have no right to. You're presuming their guilt. I mean, if they turn out to be like that Kim Davis in the States, fire their ass. But it's like I don't understand this push. I've been starting to call these things overcorrections. I don't understand this push to be illiberal, saying you want to promote liberal values, and it's like and again, this is something I take some flack for. It's the people burning the Quran in Iran. I get their fight. I respect their fight. I respect the amount of bravery it takes to film yourself in Iran burning a Quran, saying this book has destroyed our country. I hate every idea in this book, and then lighting it on fire. I'm like, that you're gonna get yourself killed. But same thing there. I'm like, you're overcorrecting. You're creating your own blasphemy law. All you're doing is showing to the mullahs that the way to fight ideas you don't like is to burn them, and that the Quran is right about that. And like, I just don't understand that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's especially with like if someone in a position in politics or in government was pushing their religion on the people they were interacting with, that's got nothing to do with what they're wearing. It's not going to stop if they suddenly take off like the cross, that they're wearing around their neck or any kind of headgear or whatever. It's not going to stop if you take that away. Like that's an action, and these are symbols. And I don't know. It is absolutely an overcorrection.
Well, I had a friend of mine tell me, well, what if you have some Muslim kids coming in, like refugee kids who are Muslim, and they come into a classroom and their teachers are wearing a yarmulke. They've been taught to hate that person. Why should you put the kids through that? I'm like, well,
they got to learn. If they want to live in this,
learn, and B, if they've been taught to hate that person, they've been taught to hate gay people. So should no openly gay teachers teach that classroom then? Like, if that's your criteria, then you go with that. It's just like I said. I find this push to go in that direction, like it comes from everywhere. It's
like it's cultural relativism to some degree too, which is I just can't stand that either, because there's some things that are just wrong. Like the death penalty in my mind is wrong, and especially for violations that were committed through speech only. Like the especially the death penalty, the executions that are carried out in Saudi Arabia. That is wrong. It is wrong in Saudi Arabia. It is wrong here. It's wrong. You can't just explain that away by saying that's their culture, those are their values, and we have to respect that. No, we fucking don't have to respect that. Like, we don't.
And okay, and a lot of the people who tell you have to respect that culture will then go protest the South Korean embassy and the Chinese embassy because they don't want people to eat dog. Well, respect their culture. Who are you to tell them what to eat, right?
Yeah, or even me, because I'm a carnivore.
Exactly.
Respect my culture.
No, but it's ludicrous. Right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. It's been fun talking to you. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or anything coming up? Like, I know you're talking about your book. Like, when can people hopefully expect to get that out? Or
I'm hoping sometime in the summer. I'm currently seeing if I can find like a literary agent or some way to publish it that's not me, because it's a lot of work, and I would just rather hand it off to somebody to publish it. But if I can't do that, then I will probably release it as a PDF and sell it that way. And it will not be expensive. And I hope that people enjoy it. But hopefully sometime in the summer. Hopefully.
Yeah, pray to God.
Yeah.
All right. If you want to let know where people can find you, and I'll put the links in the description as well.
I'm at patheos.com/blog/godlessmom, and that's where I post most days. And then on Twitter, it's godless_mom.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And thank you everyone for listening, and I'll be back.